Interesting, something to pay attention to. $150 million for 2 kilometers of bike trail. Yes, that's Toronto for you, of course. I've got some information on the mail strike, and they're going to split the online harms bill into 2 because they desperately want to get the bill passed. They desperately want to get it passed. And I've said before, if you can open the door partially, if you can open it just a little bit, you can open it all the way, right? What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? We got to pack it all in there. Now we've got what we wanted, right? If they can do it a little bit, they'll do it a lot. Now, they're going to couch this in it's for your safety, comrade. And you might even agree. But I think that we have tools that are available in the criminal code to deal with this stuff, and we choose not to in order to create a situation where they can say, look at all these online harms. We need to, crack down on the internet. Anyway, there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, online harms bill. Here is the Democracy Fund. And they said, update, the online harms bill, C-63, has been split into 2 parts, they say. The Canadian government has announced it will divide the controversial online harms bill, C-63. Remember, that's 3 sixes there, really, into 2 separate pieces of legislation. The decision to split the bill will fast-track provisions focused on child protection, combating online child predators, and policing the non-consensual disclosure of intimate images, revenge porn, dealt with in Part 1 of Bill C-63. These provisions are reasonable, says the Democracy Fund, where current laws fall short. Necessary updates to the criminal code. Greg is skeptical on that. Me too. The second bill dealt with in parts 2 and 3 of Bill C-63 deals with amendments to the Canadian Human Rights Act and Criminal Code. Provisions in that part of the bill allow for criminal punishments up to life in prison for online speech. Visit the link to learn what this means for Canadians. Now, I'm going to be talking about the emo mayor in a minute, but you have to pay attention to the Human Rights Act and what they can do, what the Human Rights Act is already doing or the Human Rights Tribunals in Ontario is already doing to the emo mayor, because that matters. And so keep that in mind for a tab. Here's this guy, and he's saying, I think this is very accurate and charges things in a way that, this is in Britain, and he's saying, we don't want truth. We want facts and data, absent of the spin, and we'll make up our own mind based on that. And I think I agree with that. Here we go.
And I'm in Parliament. I'm going to go on challenging, and I'm going to use the data. I want the statistics. I want the truth. I want transparency, so that those people in power can be held to account. So if what they're doing isn't working, the British people can then vote them out of power at the next election. But the problem is, there's so much obfuscation, there's so much PR. Where does the truth lie? We just want transparent facts and data, and then you can make your own mind up. And I'm in Parliament.
So, we want to be able to find solid ground and then make up our mind on that, not make up our mind based on ideological designs or ideological falsehoods pushed by people in power because that's convenient for them. So Bill C-63 wants to change something about the human rights and human rights tribunals and things to that effect. And the other day I told you about the mayor of Emo, and he said that he wouldn't be paying this, what did he call it? Extortion. He wouldn't be paying this extortion. And Joe Warmington has written up a piece where, because he said that he wouldn't be paying the extortion, they've already garnished his bank account. Pretty crazy stuff happening in Emo. And Joe Warmington says, mayor who stood up to Pride Group has bank account garnished. Holy smoke. Here's the article. LGBTQ plus activists, rainbow communists, have made Emo Township Mayor Harold McQuaker pay for daring to stand up to them. Although the Northern Ontario municipal leader vowed not to honor a $5,000 fine the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario levied against him for comments surrounding town council not approving a motion to approve Pride Month, he wasn't given a choice. In fact, the winner of the judgment that McQuaker called extortion has boasted it has already gone into his bank account to collect the money. Sure, sex is great, but have you ever garnished your mayor's bank account after he publicly refused to comply with the tribunal's order to pay damages, says Borderlands Pride on Facebook. It seems like they're enjoying this. Council may not have let them raise the rainbow flag for Pride Month, but they are planting a flag in the ground to show Emo is their town. Mayor McQuaker's comments in the Toronto Sun and other media were very clear that he did not respect nor intend to comply with the tribunal's orders, Borderland Pride said in an email. Consequently, it was apparent he would not voluntarily make payment of the damages ordered. We took immediate action to garnish his bank account. What McQuaker told the Sun was, I utterly refuse to pay the $5,000 because that's extortion. And also said he would not partake in an Ontario Human Rights Commission re-education course. None of this is helping, by the way. On ensuring he did pay, Borderland Pride said the garnishment was issued by the court and delivered to the CIBC and EMO, which is the only bank in the community, and there's no hearing or application to issue a notice of garnishment. It's a service provided at the court's counter or online once a person has an order for the payment of money. Borderland Pride also wrote, orders of the tribunal can be enforced in the same manner as any civil judgment for the payment of money. We intend to ensure the tribunal's orders are complied with. Turns out Mayor McQuaker is not in charge there. Borderland Pride is. Cancel culture is canceling this mayor and digging into his personal savings too, on a weak premise that is discrimination of LGBT people there. The enforcement is harsher than most violent criminals receive. It seems like a heavy-handed, undemocratic move, not to mention a violation of personal finances and cruel and unusual punishment. It's also a slippery slope. And then it's got the Facebook posts reproduced here, but the quality is not very good. I'm not going to read it. The state using legal instruments to take from one person to give to others amounts to communism and authoritarianism that should scare every citizen. First, we saw government and banks freezing accounts of pandemic lockdown protesters, seizing donations to crowdfunding sites, and now in woke Canada comes word that they can raid bank accounts too. A creeping police state is what should be cancelled, not a venerable village mayor. Just because people get the whip hand on somebody doesn't mean they need to wield it. Power is not power when it's abused. Restraint and fair play is power. And further down here it says, Ontario Premier Doug Ford should send Municipal Affairs Minister Paul Calandra to intervene and end this madness. Get both sides to shake hands with a compromise and be friends. Great-grandfather McQuaker is a good citizen, and so are the Borderland Pride volunteers. No one ever wins in a game of chicken. This occurred because democracy wasn't respected when the town decided to pass on having Pride Month. The tribunal's vice chair, Karen Dawson, claimed Mayor McQuaker's remark that there was no flag for the other side of the coin for straight people was on its face dismissive of Borderland's Pride flag request and demonstrated a lack of understanding of the importance to Borderland Pride and other members of the community of the Pride flag. What nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Dawson wrote, I'm moving forward, sorry. But more offensive than anything McQuaker said is this ruling, which ignores McQuaker's free speech and council's free vote. It was an overreaction to a comment from a 76-year-old man in a town long away from progressive municipalities, more accustomed to pride celebrations and who have a legitimate demand for them. Instead, for searching for middle ground, blunt force was employed to destroy a good man who has served his community well. He doesn't accept that he's homophobic. McQuaker maintains that he doesn't hate anybody and did not do anything wrong. If anybody needs training, it's the rainbow communists to quit pushing their weight around and make demands that people can't live with, he said. So, yeah, it's the power to do this kind of stuff is very, very concealed at this point. You can't see it easily. It happens to a few people who dare to speak up publicly, and when it happens, you think that can't happen to me. But it already happened to the truckers. It already happened to the people who donated to the truckers. It already happened in Canada multiple times to people who are a couple of steps away from actually doing anything even remotely could be argued might be criminal, and really honking horns is not criminal. These were peaceful protests that got demonized by, it looks like, a government that does not work for Canadians. And now they're garnishing wages of people, garnishing bank accounts of people who stand up to them. And it seems like Doug Ford, if he intervenes, will be framed as a bad guy in the LGBT community, right? And they'll say, oh no, the liberals are going to win again because Doug Ford stood up to these people. I would use the notwithstanding clause, and I would absolutely positively remove the human rights tribunals in Ontario. I would strip them of their ability to garnish wages. I would stop that ability entirely. Like, you need to fix this before it gets out of hand, unless it getting out of hand is the point. And it seems like being able to garnish wages for people who demonstrate wrongthink is the point. If you say climate change is a hoax used to steal our tax dollars, they're going to say, well, Mark's not going to pay his climate taxes, so we're going to just take them out of his bank account right now. You see how that works? You're a criminal, Mark, because you have said publicly that you're not going to comply with this taxation thing that is going to be levied on you. So we're just going to take it all now. You're welcome, right? You criminal, you. That's how they want to do it. It's wild. Joe Warmington again, he says, I haven't seen one elected leader speak out or up for Harold McQuaker. The respected in his community mayor and businessman is on his own. Will be interesting to see what happens at Wednesday's meeting. What I suggested was that Doug Ford and Paul Calandra mediate with him, emo and borderland pride, and find a middle ground for compromise. It's a democracy, not a police state. Work it out for all sides. Yeah, I don't even know what legal options he would have at this point in time, but I hope he's exploring them. But it's going to be expensive. $5,000 is a drop in the bucket for trying to fix this legally. And it's ridiculous. Like, you'd almost be better served to take your money and move to Mexico. And because all of this nonsense is absolute nonsense. And these communists have got a bit of blood in the water. And if Bill C-63 passes and they can have human rights tribunals say, Mark, you've hurt somebody's feelings and you just don't understand how important it is to them that you understand that men can be women according to them. And so you owe them $5,000. And because you've said a whole bunch on your show that you won't pay things like that, we've already taken it out of your bank account. You're welcome. They can do this stuff. They're already doing this stuff. That's what they want to do. That's the goal. They're not. Doug Ford isn't going to ride in on a white horse, white knighting for Harold. It's not going to happen. And if Harold can successfully fix this, I'd be shit shocked because the judiciary is stacked against him. Okay? They want him to pay up, shut up, and be quiet. And so, like, I don't know how to fix it. Well, no, I do know how to fix it. You arrest every judge. You arrest every bureaucrat. You arrest every elected person at this point in time, and you put them on trial for COVID and all of the lies they've told, and you throw them in jail, and then you replace the whole system through tribunals, okay? And jail, depending, right? Depending on the level of treason they've committed according to the citizen-led tribunals. Because going to a communist court and asking for justice is stupid, and we would be stupid to try it. So I don't know how to fix this in the real world where we live, where that's not going to happen, right? So it's unfortunate, but true. You know the beginning of Braveheart, where they all get together and all the farmers are like, yeah, we're going to go talk to him. And then they all get slaughtered. Yeah, right? Like that. True North. And then even at the end of Braveheart, where, I mean, I know it's fiction, but he gets, drawn and quartered, right? Like, because they stretched him on the rack and then they quartered his body and then they cut off his head and they sent it all around England, right? So yeah, that's what they do when you actually genuinely represent a threat to power. Okay, that's what they do. And hey, speaking of all of that, that's a perfect transition into what happened in Syria. Hold on, one thing first. Another Alberta town has decided that it's not going to have politically charged crosswalks or flags. Second Alberta town adopts neutral flag crosswalk policy in public spaces. Watch for the Human Rights Tribunal award for the local Rainbow Communists. Ewan McKenna. Okay, let's talk about Syria. Ewan says, as we speak, the West is collapsing Ukraine, backing the Israeli genocide, according to this guy, all in on Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria. That's where we're going to explore in just a minute. And trying to start civil war in Georgia and engaged in a coup in Romania. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Romanian coup as well. So all of that is in play right now. Pretty wild stuff. This is big world news, okay? And Donald Trump was talking about this as it was kicking off. He says opposition fighters in Syria, in an unprecedented move, have totally taken over numerous cities in a highly coordinated offensive and are now on the outskirts of Damascus, obviously preparing to make a very big move toward taking out Assad. Russia, because they're so tied up in Ukraine and with the loss of their over 600,000 soldiers, seems incapable of stopping this march through Syria, a country they have protected for years. This is where former President Obama refused to honor his commitment of protecting the red line in the sand, and all hell broke out with Russia stepping in. But now they are, like possibly Assad himself, being forced out, and it may actually be the best thing that can happen to them. There was never much of a benefit in Syria for Russia, other than to make Obama look really stupid. In any event, Syria is a mess, but it's not our friend, and the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved. I think this whole thing was a U.S. event originally. I think that this was pushed by the U.S. for the reasons Trump was highlighting. this hurts Russia. It hurts, and I mean, he's saying that there's no real reason for Russia to be there. Maybe that's true. I don't know the politics of the region as well as I know North American politics, et cetera, et cetera. But Russia has been there and has been supporting Syria for a while. That's been in play for a long time. And doing this changes maybe the math of Ukraine, Russia, especially at a time when now there's Storm Shadow missiles and other long-range U.S. missiles with NATO telemetry being used, right? Like all of this changes the math. This feels like U.S.-led coup in Syria. That's what it feels like to me. And it looks the same as when Iraq was toppled by the U.S. as well. Here is OSINT technical. Syrians ride on a toppled statue of Assad in the city of Lactica. There was a regime change. I had a documentary on my CanadaReport.com thing talking about regime change and talking about how all these color revolutions looked very similar. They were backed by, like, Victoria Nuland was handing out bottles of water and snacks to protesters in the streets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They whip these kids up. They use a carrot in order to say, like, we want this. They give them a leader to support that says, we're going to give you this thing. And then if the other guy wins, then they riot and they lose their shit. And I mean, I'm not saying that this is exactly that same model. It just really, it looks on the ground, it looks like that. It looks like there's more to this than these people bubbling up and opposing Assad. I look forward to MC schooling me on this at the kitchen table talk later today. But fundamentally, I really do think it looks like the government in the U.S. pushing this either monetarily, CIA, levels of being able to say, oh no, we have nothing to do with this. But ultimately there's CIA back channels, people on the ground, people saying, okay, it's go time. Okay. And they've been assets on the ground there for years and years and years and years, since Obama, right? Okay. So Christians in Syria are under threat now because an Islamic regime has taken over Syria, and Russia can't help. Russia is largely Christian, right? Middle Eastern, Syria. Okay. Shadows of Ezra says the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, or other entity might have brought down Bashar al-Assad's aircraft. He's the former leader of Syria, which vanished from radar after an abrupt turn and erratic movements. Reports suggest the plane may have crashed. The Israeli war room shared a cryptic message reminiscent of their response to the Iranian president's helicopter crash earlier this year. Syria is now controlled by the same people who killed Muammar Gaddafi. And so, right, like, we came, we saw, he died. So interesting. And I hear also there's rumors that maybe Assad wasn't on his plane. So there's rumors that he was actually successfully gotten out of Syria to a safe house, but I have no idea which one's true. So, I mean, you've got to make up your own mind on all of that, right? Here's the Patriot Voice. It appears that al-Assad's plane was en route out of Syria, has gone completely off the radar and has been silent for close to an hour now. There are only two potential outcomes for this situation. One, an unplanned emergency landing. Two, his plane was shot down or crashed. Interestingly, the official war room account on X posted a plane emoji in the same way it did when the Iranian president's helicopter crashed earlier this year, leading to the likely conclusion that the IDF could be behind the downing of Assad's plane, because why else would the account post this? The provided evidence would suggest that a full-blown coup of the country and its government, as well as the assassination of a world leader, has taken place here, not to mention all of the Syrian Christians who will face mass martyrdom and execution at the hands of Islamic extremists who have taken over, inching us even closer to World War III, less than 50 days until Trump returns to office. I think it's 45 days. Bad? Very, very bad, they say. Very bad. Very bad. Maybe very bad. Here is some more color on this. This is a former UK diplomat. I think he's accurate, and yeah, I think that what he's saying has a lot of plausibility. Here we go.
There is no doubt that the so-called rebel forces attacking the government in Syria are creatures of the United States and of Israel. There's been congressional testimony in the United States openly that the United States had spent more than $500 million on the Syrian rebel forces. And that was some years ago. It's gone up since then. Israel has provided medical and other support facilities to them perfectly openly. The United States yesterday was attacking from the air forces coming from Iraq to try to help the government of Syria, while Israel was attacking the links between Syria and Lebanon, again with bombing from the air. And the forces facing the rebels, the Syrian Arab Army, the National Army of Syria, has been bombed relentlessly by Israel for more than a year. So there's no doubt whatsoever that the rebels are backed by the CIA and backed by Israel. And that's what's happening here. It's an attempt by the Americans and the Israelis, aided by the Turks, to overthrow the regime in Damascus in order to block assistance flowing through Syria to Lebanon.
I think that's accurate. I think that's pretty accurate. Here's Donald Trump following up. Assad is gone. He says he's fled his country. His protector, Russia, led by Vladimir Putin, was not interested in protecting him any longer. There was no reason for Russia to be there in the first place. They lost all interest in Syria because of Ukraine, where close to 600,000 Russian soldiers lay wounded or dead in a war that should never have started and could go on forever. Russia and Iran are in a weakened state right now, one because of Ukraine and a bad economy, the other because of Israel and its fighting success. Likewise, Zelensky and Ukraine would like to make a deal and stop the madness. They have ridiculously lost 400,000 soldiers and many more civilians. There should be an immediate ceasefire. Negotiations should begin. Too many lives are being so needlessly wasted, too many families destroyed, and if it keeps going, it can turn into something much bigger and far worse. I know Vladimir well. This is his time to act. China can help. The world is waiting. So, I don't know. Peace, says Trump, because Syria fell. Peace right now. Here is Pax Tube, and he says, Assad fought for 13 long years against half the world. He did his duty and defended his country's interests to that end. He protected Middle Eastern Christians when so many Western Christians threw them under the bus. End of an era. He says, this is a especially dark day for Palestinians, says he continues. Assad was an important part of the resistance trying to stop Israel from ethnically cleansing millions of people from Palestine. Israel now has free rein to carry out its evil goals, and the backing of the U.S. too. Right? Like this guy was saying the British guy was saying part of it is to prevent the ability for assistance to come through Syria into Lebanon to stop Israel, right? Like that's how this is all fitting together, right? And I think that it's interesting that people are not necessarily not paying attention to this, but they're looking at it with one jump when I think that there's 3 or 4 jumps that are happening here simultaneously. So that's interesting. Dr. Malouf says the Islamist group HTS has officially taken over Syria so who's backed them, right? Have you ever heard of HTS before? Yeah, all right. Earlier today, they announced Sharia law will soon be implemented. Christian families have also been told that they might search their homes in the next days. Syria will become Afghanistan 2.0. So there you go. That's pretty not great. Right? But I guess Donald Trump doesn't seem worried about that. He says they're not their friends. So, okay. Alternative News says NATO is getting worried. The people in Romania hate the war in Ukraine and are against the NATO approach. Also, NATO has a major installation in Romania. Naturally, they blame social media that the people no longer believe their superiors. Legacy media has lost their power. So this is the Romanian stuff is kind of playing into this as well. Minor at this point, but perhaps that'll come back up, and they just nullified a presidential election there because the candidate they didn't want won. So we'll see how that factors in the coming weeks, right? Disclosed TV says U.S. sends an additional $988 million in weapons to Ukraine, including artillery rockets and unmanned drones. Amazing, right? $988 million. It was blocked because Congress, I don't know if this is actually being sent. I heard that the speaker tried to block it because he wanted to wait for instructions from Donald Trump. So I don't know if this is actually happening, but Disclosed TV seems to think that it is. So that's the most updated from there. We'll see. I remember seeing Johnston talk about it. I remember seeing the speaker talk about it yesterday, saying that he was going to wait, but maybe it was a different package. Jonathan says, Syrian refugees in Denmark. This is going into kind of the invasion, immigration kind of stuff. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. They're saying that because of the coup in Syria, we're going to be seeing 1.5 million migrants from Syria. But this is the track record of those migrants in Denmark. Syrian refugees in Denmark, 62% of Syrians in the cohort have been convicted of a serious crime. Only 21% of Syrian women of prime working age are employed. That's like 1 in 5. The rest are on welfare. This is an astonishingly low number, even for immigrants in Denmark. In a Dutch study, they found that each Syrian immigrant cost the taxpayer $300,000 to $480,000 on average. That's a lot of money. GiveWell estimates that a life can be saved for 3,000 euros. That's 300,000 to 480,000 euros, not dollars. Rapes have been increasing in Denmark over the same period as mass immigration. Among immigrants, Syrian perpetrators are at the top. A Syrian immigrant killed Marissa Chen too, didn't they? If European countries had any sense, they would not take any Syrian refugees. We can't take on all the world's burdens. For what it's worth, I'm in favor of humanitarian efforts, but mass immigration through asylum claims is the most damaging, least cost-effective humanitarian approach ever devised. It is not a humanitarian approach. It is using people as a weapon. It is a weapon of mass destruction. It is not at all a humanitarian policy. It is a weapon of mass destruction. It will destroy your country. Reuters says up to 1.5 million people could flee Syrian escalation, says the UN. And the UN is drooling and doing evil bad guy fingers. Like they can't wait to send people to Canada. They'll send them all to Canada, right? There you go. Here's 1.5 million new Canadians for you, Justin. And then what happens? They put them up in hotels. And then what happens? Your community is destroyed. This is what's happening in England with the migrant hotels. This is how bad they are and why we should say absolutely not. But our governments continually fund them with our tax dollars, and they're harmful for everything. Here we go.
They are hypocrites. A lot of them do not understand the damage that these hotels are causing in local towns and cities, especially a town. Look, a hotel that would normally employ 10, 15, 20 people suddenly has a couple of security guards and a chef. So that is dozens of local jobs that have gone. That is also a draw to the town, so the local bars, the local pubs, the local restaurants. The taxis suffer. There is no upside to having a migrant hotel in your town. That then, we now have to talk about the crime that emanates from some of these hotels. We have seen murderers, rapists, paedophiles, gangsters, thieves come across on these dinghies. We've seen a lot of the high-profile cases. How many more do we not know about? In Europe, we know the crime stats for migrant crime, and it is terrifying. Is he okay with that? Are the people of Norwich okay with that? I don't think they are.
Yeah. So people don't understand how damaging these things are, but it destroys. It's like a worm eating your apple. It destroys the economy from within. You don't even really kind of notice it, and then it's all just gone. True North is reporting Quebec Premier Francois Legault has warned against bringing foreign tensions into his province. The Quebec government will not tolerate the Middle East conflict to be imported into Quebec, he wrote in a post on X on Tuesday. So we will not tolerate this, right? And here is further color on that. Mr. Surveillance is highlighting this, and this is the tweet. He's talking.
Moi, je veux aujourd'hui l'envoyer.
It's not in English. Apologies about that. But part of the quote says, today I want to send a very clear message to Islamists. The fundamental values that we have in Quebec, like secularism and equality between men and women, we will fight for and never accept that people try to disrespect these fundamental values in Quebec. And yesterday, I was telling you about prayer laws, stopping people praying on the streets and in parks and things like that. And he's specifically targeting Islamic prayers, etc. So that's interesting. He says, go pray in the mosque. But in a juxtaposition, Danielle Smith is courting people from the Arab Emirates. Charlotte says, remind me again how she fights for Albertans. For anyone who voted for Danielle Smith. What's your game, Danielle Smith? Alberta seeking to recruit foreign workers from United Arab Emirates. Emails say. That's from Calgary, December 6th. Are you surprised? I'm not surprised. Here's my shocked face. CTV News is reporting, let's move on just a little bit. These are the U.S. tariffs, and CTV News says, get this. Have you heard of Ford, that American company? Yeah, okay. Most Canadians would avoid buying U.S. products post-Trump tariff. Okay, so all of our stuff is going to come from China on Amazon? Too late. And it's gone. So, hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful